If she truly loves you, she will ignore you. And that sounds confusing at first, maybe even painful, but there's a deeper truth hidden inside it that most people never stop to understand. Real love isn't always loud, constant, or chasing. Sometimes real love steps back. Sometimes it creates space. And in that space, you are given something rare, the opportunity to become stronger, healthier, and more complete within yourself. Silence in love is often misunderstood, especially when emotions are strong and expectations are high. But when you look deeper, you begin to realize that silence is not always absence. It is space, and space can either weaken you or build you depending on how you respond to it. When she pulls back, when the messages slow down, when the attention is no longer constant, most people react with anxiety, overthinking, and a desperate need to fix something that may not even be broken. But the truth is, this moment is not about her distance, it's about your foundation. This is where emotional strength is tested in its purest form, because anyone can feel secure when they are constantly reassured, but very few can remain calm, centered, and focused when that reassurance disappears. Instead of chasing answers or seeking validation, you are given a rare opportunity to redirect your energy inward, to build a version of yourself that does not depend on external attention to feel complete. This is not easy, especially if you have spent years attaching your sense of worth to how someone treats you, but it is necessary if you want lasting confidence and peace. You start by accepting that silence is not always rejection. Sometimes it is simply life happening, priorities shifting, or emotions settling. But regardless of the reason, your reaction should remain the same. You stay grounded. You do not abandon your routine, your health, or your self-respect just because someone else has become quiet. Instead, you double down on the things that strengthen you. You wake up with intention, you choose foods that nourish your body rather than harm it, and you begin to treat your physical health as a priority, not an afterthought. Because when your body feels strong, your mind follows. Clean eating, balanced meals, proper hydration, these are not just physical choices, they are emotional stabilizers. They give you the energy to think clearly, to avoid unnecessary stress, and to handle uncertainty with a calm mind. Especially as you grow older, your body becomes more sensitive to neglect, and your mental state becomes closely tied to your physical habits, which is why even small changes in your diet can create noticeable improvements in how you handle emotional situations. Alongside that, movement becomes your anchor. You don't need extreme workouts or exhausting routines, but you do need consistency. A simple daily walk, light stretching, or gentle strength exercises can completely shift your mental state. Movement releases tension, clears your thoughts, and reminds you that you are still progressing, still growing, still in control of your life. Instead of sitting still and overthinking, you choose action, even if it's small, because action builds confidence while overthinking destroys it. As days pass, you begin to notice something important. The silence that once felt heavy starts to feel lighter. It no longer controls your mood or dictates your actions. You are no longer checking your phone every few minutes or replaying conversations in your head. You are present in your own life again, focused on your own growth, and that shift changes everything, because the more you invest in yourself, the less you depend on others to feel stable. Your mindset evolves as well. You stop seeing silence as something negative and start seeing it as neutral, even beneficial. It becomes a space where you can think clearly, reflect on your goals, and realign with what truly matters. You realize that not every moment needs to be filled with noise, attention, or validation. Sometimes the most powerful growth happens in quiet moments, when you are left alone with your thoughts and forced to strengthen your inner world. And this is where true confidence is built. Not in constant connection, but in comfortable independence, where you can stand alone without feeling lonely, where you can move forward without needing approval, where you can remain steady even when things around you become uncertain, where your peace is not fragile but deeply rooted in how you live your daily life, in the habits you maintain, in the discipline you practice, and in the way you choose to respond instead of react. When attention fades, most people feel an urge to chase it, to restore what was lost as quickly as possible. But what separates a grounded individual from a reactive one is the ability to pause and choose a different path, one that doesn't revolve around chasing someone else, but revolves around building yourself into someone who no longer needs to chase at all. This is where discipline quietly replaces desperation, and where your daily habits begin to shape not just your body, but your identity. Instead of reacting emotionally, you begin to create structure in your life. You wake up at a consistent time, not because you have to, but because you respect your own routine. Your mornings become intentional rather than chaotic. You start your day with something simple but powerful, hydration, a few minutes of stretching, maybe stepping outside to get fresh air. These small actions send a message to your mind that you are in control, that your life is not dependent on someone else's presence or absence. Your relationship with food begins to change as well. You stop eating out of boredom or emotional discomfort and start eating with awareness. You choose meals that support your energy levels, lean proteins, whole grains, fruits, vegetables, foods that nourish rather than numb. This isn't about perfection or strict diets. It's about consistency and respect for your body. Especially as you grow older, your metabolism, digestion, and overall health require more attention, and the way you eat directly affects how you feel emotionally. When your body is fueled properly, your mood stabilizes, your thoughts become clearer, and your ability to handle stress improves. At the same time, you begin to simplify your lifestyle. You reduce unnecessary noise, both physically and mentally. You stop overloading your mind with endless scrolling, negative content, or conversations that drain your energy. You become selective about what you consume because you understand that your environment shapes your mindset. Peace becomes something you actively protect, not something you passively hope for. Physical movement becomes a non-negotiable part of your day, not as a punishment, but as a form of self-respect. You might go for a walk, do light exercises, or engage in activities that keep your body active without overwhelming it. The goal is not intensity, but consistency. Especially for older adults, maintaining mobility, balance, and strength is essential, and even small efforts can create long-term benefits. Movement becomes your way of releasing stress, of staying connected to your body, and of reminding yourself that progress is always possible, regardless of your age or circumstances. As you continue this routine, something deeper begins to shift. You start to rely less on external validation and more on internal stability. Your confidence is no longer tied to how often someone reaches out to you, but to how consistently you show up for yourself. This kind of confidence is quiet, but powerful. It doesn't need to be announced or proven. It's reflected in your actions, your posture, your presence. Your mindset also becomes more disciplined. Instead of letting your thoughts spiral into worst-case scenarios, you learn to observe them without reacting immediately. You understand that not every thought deserves your attention, and not every emotion requires a response. This awareness gives you control over your inner world, which is far more important than trying to control external situations. You begin to appreciate the value of patience. Not everything needs an immediate solution, and not every silence needs to be filled. Sometimes the best thing you can do is continue building your life, one day at a time, without rushing outcomes. This patience is not passive, it is active growth. It is the decision to keep moving forward, even when things feel uncertain. Over time, your lifestyle becomes a reflection of your self-worth. The way you eat, the way you move, the way you manage your time and energy, all of it starts to align with a higher standard. You are no longer living reactively, jumping from one emotional state to another based on external triggers. You are living intentionally, with clarity and purpose. And in this process, you realize something important. The attention you once chased becomes less significant because you have created a life that feels fulfilling on its own. You are no longer waiting for someone else to complete your day or define your mood. You have built routines, habits, and a mindset that support you regardless of what anyone else does. This is the quiet power of discipline. It transforms your focus from what you are missing to what you are building, from what you can't control to what you can improve, from emotional dependency to personal strength, where each day becomes an opportunity to reinforce your stability, to deepen your self-respect, and to continue evolving into someone who stands firm, even when attention fades and silence stretches longer than expected. Emotional independence is not something you suddenly achieve. It is something you build quietly, day by day, especially in moments when you feel the urge to depend on someone else for reassurance, but choose instead to stand on your own. When her attention becomes inconsistent or distant, this is where most people fall into the trap of attachment, where their mood rises and falls based on someone else's behavior. But this is also the exact moment where you can begin to separate your emotional stability from external influence and start creating a deeper sense of control within yourself. At first, it feels uncomfortable. You may catch yourself checking your phone repeatedly, wondering why things have changed, questioning your value, replaying conversations in your mind, but instead of feeding those patterns, you begin to interrupt them. You remind yourself that your worth is not measured by how often someone contacts you, and that real confidence comes from how you treat yourself, not how others treat you. This shift in thinking is subtle but powerful, because it changes your focus from seeking validation to building self-respect. You begin to spend more time with yourself, not in isolation, but in awareness. You start noticing your thoughts, your habits, your routines. You recognize where you have been neglecting your own needs and where you have been relying too much on external attention to feel secure. This awareness is not about self-criticism, but about clarity. It allows you to make better choices, to redirect your energy into things that actually strengthen you. Your daily habits become the foundation of your emotional independence. You start maintaining a balanced diet not just for physical health, but for mental clarity. You include foods that support brain function and overall well-being, understanding that what you eat directly affects how you feel. You stay hydrated, you avoid excessive processed foods, and you become more mindful of how your body responds to different choices. These small adjustments create a sense of stability that extends beyond the physical and into your emotional state. Movement continues to play an important role in this process. Regular light exercise becomes more than just a routine. It becomes a way to reconnect with yourself. Whether it's walking, stretching, or simple strength exercises, each movement reinforces the idea that you are taking care of your body and your mind. Especially as you grow older, maintaining this connection becomes even more important because it helps you stay active, alert, and resilient. It also gives you a healthy outlet for stress and emotional tension, reducing the need to seek comfort in unhealthy ways. Your lifestyle begins to reflect a different kind of energy, one that is calm, grounded, and self-sufficient. You are no longer reacting impulsively to every change in someone else's behavior. Instead, you observe, you process, and you respond with intention. You give yourself time before making decisions, and you become more comfortable with uncertainty. This patience is a sign of growth because it shows that you are no longer controlled by immediate emotions. You also begin to set boundaries, not necessarily with words, but with your actions. You stop overextending yourself, you stop being constantly available, and you stop prioritizing others at the expense of your own well-being. This does not make you distant or uncaring. It makes you balanced. It ensures that your energy is not drained by trying to maintain connections that are not equally reciprocated. As your independence grows, your mindset becomes more resilient. You start to understand that silence from someone else does not define your reality. It is simply one part of a much larger picture. You stop taking things personally and start seeing situations more objectively. This perspective reduces unnecessary stress and allows you to stay focused on your own path. There is also a sense of freedom that comes with emotional independence. You are no longer tied to expectations or constantly waiting for things to go a certain way. You are able to enjoy your own company, to engage in activities that bring you satisfaction, and to move through your day without needing constant interaction. This freedom is not about being alone, it is about being complete within yourself. And as this independence becomes stronger, something remarkable happens. Your presence changes. You carry yourself differently, with quiet confidence and stability. You are no longer easily shaken by external changes, and this makes you more attractive, not just to others, but in the way you experience your own life. You become someone who is steady, reliable, and emotionally balanced, someone who does not lose direction when things become uncertain, someone who continues to grow, to improve, and to move forward regardless of who stays or who becomes distant, building a life that is rooted in self-awareness, discipline, and a deep sense of inner strength. There comes a point where you begin to see silence differently, not as something that takes away from you, but as something that reveals you to yourself. When the noise fades, when the constant interaction is no longer there to distract you, you are left with your thoughts, your habits, your routines, and your true state of being. This is where clarity is born, not in the chaos of constant communication, but in the quiet moments where you are forced to face yourself without filters. At first, this kind of silence can feel uncomfortable, especially if you are used to filling your time with distractions or depending on someone else's presence to feel complete. But as you allow yourself to sit with it, you start to notice things you didn't before. You become aware of how much unnecessary stress you were carrying, how often you were overthinking, how frequently your mood depended on factors outside your control. This awareness is not meant to overwhelm you, but to guide you toward a better way of living. You begin to slow down your life in a way that feels intentional rather than forced. You pay attention to your daily rhythm, how you wake up, how you eat, how you move, and how you spend your time. You realize that a healthy lifestyle is not just about physical appearance, but about creating a stable foundation for your mind. You start choosing foods that give you sustained energy instead of temporary satisfaction, focusing on balanced meals that support your overall well-being. Especially as an older adult, this becomes even more important because your body responds more strongly to both good and bad habits. Sleep becomes a priority rather than an afterthought. You understand that without proper rest, your mind becomes more reactive, your emotions become harder to manage, and your ability to think clearly is reduced. So you begin to create a routine that supports better sleep, limiting distractions before bed, allowing your body to wind down naturally, and respecting the need for recovery. This simple change has a powerful effect on how you handle silence, because a well-rested mind is far less likely to spiral into negative thinking. You also start to embrace stillness in a positive way. Instead of trying to escape quiet moments, you lean into them. You might spend time reflecting, journaling, or simply sitting without distraction. These moments allow you to process your thoughts, to understand your emotions, and to gain clarity about what truly matters in your life. You begin to see that not every feeling needs to be acted upon immediately, and that giving yourself time to think can lead to better decisions. Your physical activity continues to support this sense of clarity. Gentle, consistent movement helps regulate your mood and keeps your body engaged. Whether it's a walk in nature, light stretching, or simple exercises at home, these actions create a sense of balance. They remind you that even in stillness, there is progress being made, that you are taking care of yourself in ways that go beyond immediate results. As your lifestyle becomes more aligned with your well-being, your mindset shifts naturally. You stop viewing silence as something negative and start seeing it as an opportunity. It becomes a space where you can reset, refocus, and reconnect with your goals. You realize that constant noise often hides important truths, while silence brings them to the surface. And once you begin to understand this, you no longer fear being alone with your thoughts. There is also a sense of emotional maturity that develops during this process. You become less reactive, less impulsive, and more thoughtful in how you approach situations. You give yourself permission to pause before responding, to consider different perspectives, and to choose actions that align with your long-term well-being rather than short-term emotions. This maturity creates a sense of stability that extends into every area of your life. Over time, silence transforms from something you once resisted into something you value. It becomes a tool for growth, a way to maintain your peace, and a reminder that you do not need constant external input to feel grounded. You learn to trust yourself more, to rely on your own judgment, and to find comfort in your own presence. And in this quiet transformation, you discover a deeper sense of clarity, where your thoughts are no longer clouded by noise, where your actions are guided by intention, and where your life begins to reflect a calm, steady energy that is not easily disturbed by external changes, allowing you to move forward with confidence, awareness, and a stronger connection to who you truly are. At a certain point, you stop trying to decode every action, every silence, every shift in behavior, and you begin to understand something far more important than her intentions. You understand your own direction. Because the real power was never in figuring out why she pulled away, it was in deciding who you become when she does. This is where your life separates from reaction and moves into purpose, where you stop living in response to others and start living by design. You begin to see that your energy is limited, and where you invest it determines the quality of your life. Instead of pouring it into overthinking, chasing, or seeking explanations, you redirect it into building something solid within yourself. Your focus becomes clearer. You start setting personal standards, not based on what others expect from you, but based on what you know is right for your growth, your health, and your future. This clarity gives you a sense of control that cannot be shaken by temporary emotional situations. Your daily routine becomes a reflection of that purpose. You wake up with a sense of direction, even if it's simple. You take care of your body with intention, choosing foods that support long-term health rather than short-term cravings. Balanced meals, proper hydration, and mindful eating become part of your identity. You are no longer eating to cope with emotions, but to fuel a life that requires strength, focus, and endurance. Especially as you grow older, you understand that your body is your foundation, and maintaining it is not optional if you want to continue living with energy and independence. Physical activity also takes on a deeper meaning. It is no longer just about staying fit, but about preserving your mobility, your strength, and your confidence in your own body. You engage in light but consistent exercise, respecting your limits while still challenging yourself enough to grow. Each movement becomes a reminder that you are capable, that you are progressing, and that your life is still moving forward regardless of what is happening around you. This consistency builds a quiet confidence that does not rely on external validation. Your mindset becomes sharper and more intentional. You stop entertaining thoughts that lead nowhere. When your mind tries to pull you back into doubt or insecurity, you recognize it and redirect your focus. This doesn't mean you never feel uncertainty, but it means you no longer allow it to control your actions. You choose thoughts that align with your growth, your peace, and your long-term vision. This level of mental discipline creates a stability that others can feel when they interact with you. You also begin to value your time differently. You become more selective about how you spend it and who you spend it with. You engage in activities that add meaning to your life, whether it's learning something new, improving your skills, or simply enjoying moments of calm without distraction. You are no longer trying to fill every moment with noise or attention. Instead, you appreciate the balance between activity and rest, between connection and solitude. There is a sense of self-respect that grows naturally from this lifestyle. You are no longer willing to compromise your well-being for temporary emotional satisfaction. You understand that real fulfillment comes from consistency, from discipline, and from staying aligned with your values even when it's not easy. This self-respect influences every decision you make, from your habits to your relationships, and as this version of you becomes stronger, your presence changes in a way that is difficult to ignore. You are calm but not passive, confident but not arrogant, independent but not distant. You carry yourself with a sense of purpose that shows in your actions rather than your words. You are no longer trying to prove anything to anyone, and that in itself becomes your strength. At this stage, whether she returns with more attention or remains distant becomes less important, not because you don't care, but because your life no longer revolves around that outcome. You have built something deeper than temporary connection. You have built a foundation within yourself that supports you in any situation. This is where true freedom exists, not in controlling others, but in mastering your own response, your own habits, and your own direction. And in that mastery, you find a sense of fulfillment that goes beyond relationships, beyond validation, beyond momentary emotions, creating a life that is steady, meaningful, and aligned with who you have chosen to become, where your growth continues regardless of external circumstances, and your sense of purpose remains clear even in the quietest moments.